Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the legislative end of session event brought to you by the Pensacola Young Professionals. My name is Justin Oswald. I am the Vice President of Economic Development and Government Affairs for the Pensacola Young Professionals, and we're glad you're with us tonight. Tonight, we're hosting the Florida House of Representatives, District 1 and 2, Representative Michelle Salzman for District 1 and Representative Alex Andrade for District 2. They're going to be with us here tonight to talk about all the stuff going on in our government around us. That's happened in the first legislative session. So I want to welcome District 1 Representative Michelle Salzman for the Florida House. Good
Hi.
evening, Representative Salzman. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also want to welcome District 2 Representative Alex Andrade.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So both of you have a history in relationship with the Pensacola Young Professionals. Representative Salzman, you were a member the first year, and then I know you have relationships and friendships with many of the members over your years of community service here in Pensacola. So we're so honored that you are still think it's important to be with young professionals and teach us something about what's going on. And Representative Andrade, you were a member yourself. I think you sat in the role that I currently hold, if I'm not mistaken, and we're an active member, you and your wife. So thank you for that. I appreciate you guys being with us. And I wanted to talk for a minute and get both of you just to hear a little bit. A lot of the people my age, I try to follow politics. I actually love politics, but a lot of the people that are in my age group are younger. Specifically, I noticed with Gen Z, there's a severe level of apathy of what's going on around us, from our politicians to our local government and all these things. And I think that needs to change. What would you say to young people about why it's important to engage in these kind of conversations? Representative Salzman, what would you say to someone on why this is important?
Well, it starts with your future. If you're not engaged in the conversation, then you're not a part of the solution. And so if you're looking at becoming a professional of some kind in that field and you're not engaged in your own community, then you're not going to even know how to be impactful or how to make that better for yourself. So as an advocate, where I come from, advocacy, and I can tell you that a lot of times, even 20 years ago, whenever I first started, doing volunteerism, it was really about, I didn't like the way something was happening. So I became a part of the conversation.
Right.
I gave myself a seat at the table. And I think being engaged, however that means, whether you're volunteering, whether you're, just someone that is informed that people can go to get information, or even if you're just a part of networking organizations like Pensacola Young Professionals, we all have a part in this. And if we all just stay engaged in some way, I think it makes Pensacola, a much better place.
Absolutely. That's so good. Representative Andrade, what would you say to a young person why this is important to be engaged in what's going on?
I mean, I'll take a slightly different approach to it and just say, engaged or not, decisions are being made about your future, whether or not you're at the table.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm 31 years old, right? So somebody watching right now might think that's old, but the vast majority of people in this community think that's very young. In fact, if you speak to any single person that's run against me for this position, they're going to say that's too young to do this job. But like, my response to that is, everyone who's ever run against me knew far less about the legislative process and about what it took to actually make good change in Northwest Florida. So if you think you have something to contribute. If you think you have something to contribute and you're not contributing, that's on you. You get to, it's the metric about what lets you sleep at night and what lets you look yourself in the mirror. The decision-making process for running for office, and the vast majority of people who can make really good change in a community never put their name on a ballot. But if you think you're the best person to make a change, to make a call, to lead whatever movement you think needs to be made, if you think you're the best person, you're not doing it, that's on you. You have a responsibility to do that. If you believe in your heart right now that you have the best idea and solution. Why the heck aren't you doing it? Like, like, when you're 31 years old and you're in this job, or when I got elected at 28, a lot of folks love to say, like, I could do what he's doing. He's so young, he needs to get put in his place or whatever. If you think you can do a better job, why didn't you do it? I want to encourage everybody to get involved. It's not that hard to get involved, but it's really on you. If you really think you're the smartest, most intelligent, most capable person, go put your name on the ballot, go sign up, go put yourself out there and go do it. Otherwise, please don't complain.
I love the challenge to everybody. It's like, I think there's a level of people feel like there is, Michelle, you use the phrase seat at the table. I think sometimes young people think that they're being kept from the table, but sometimes just make a way.
Right. You really
bring your own chair. Bring your own chair. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm a good example of that. I just
right. So speaking of that, Representative Salzman, you are a freshman in the legislative session. This was your first session, newly elected. Tell just a minute or two on what your experience was like going in. Was it what you thought it would be? Was it not what you thought it would be? And what did you think?
Well, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to come into this world where everybody was focused on themselves and people, they had their own tunnel vision, and, I would be alone. Yeah, you make a couple of friends and that's about it. But that's not the case. It's a great place to be. The culture is fantastic. The staff, I say, is better than Chick-fil-A, to give people an idea of what they're like. I mean, I felt like I was at home. Yeah. It was a great experience. Everybody was incredible. I mean, I have a great team from Pensacola. The Panhandle is certainly well represented all across. I mean, from District 1 all the way down. We are so fortunate to have some great conservatives in office. And so I had an excellent experience. I thought it was going to be really hard. I thought I was going to be alone, and that just wasn't the case. I felt very, very embraced and very helped. I felt loved. I feel like I left session with a lot of good things. I'm certainly proud that I was able to bring $1 back. That was all I said I was going to do. And I brought back a little bit more than $1, hopefully, fingers crossed. The governor has to sign it.
That's great.
But it was great. It was great. And I mean, we just have some great leadership in place. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better legislation.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And for everybody that's watching us live on Facebook or YouTube or the Pensacola Young Professionals website, we will do a Q&A at the end. So if you drop some questions in the comments, maybe we'll be able to get to those at the end. And, the question I want to start with, guys, is obviously there's more to being a representative than just passing bills. How would you define personal success and your effectiveness during a legislative session? Alex, why don't you take that first?
Sure. So, I mean, yeah, we get paid very little to do this job, right? So, people think that if you're signing up for a job like this, you're doing it for a paycheck. I can tell you I took a pay cut to do this job, but there's plenty of different ways to measure success, right? So, you can measure it by, the number of projects you get funded, number of bills you pass. You can measure it by, the constituent service you're providing back home, the different projects. Like, I think the biggest thing for me now, I'm in my third session. For me personally, the way I judge myself as far as like starting out a session and getting out of a session is that I do better than my session before. So the fundamental first metrics, right? Like, how many projects did I get funded? How many bills did I pass? Did I take care of, my county, my two cities, my two counties? So yeah, I can say that on the progress side and the growth side, yeah, like I got 10 projects funded, 9 bills passed my first session. I got 11 projects funded, 5 more substantive bills passed my second session. I got 14 projects funded this time. I got 4 more substantive bills passed this time. But at the same time, learning how to work in state agencies and make change in state agencies is bigger. Like I've always come back after a session and try to tell everybody back home that, like, special projects, those projects I talked about getting funded, matter far less than if I can, in the off season when I'm here back home, getting my county, city representatives, local folks who care about different stuff, getting them in the room with state agency officials to go get what they need done when I'm here. So we brought home and we landed a new FDLE facility for the county in Escambia, in a way that's going to be, huge for our area. That's not going to show up in those 14 projects that got funded. That's a decision that the state had to make between buying property downtown, using state contractors from out of our community to build a state property. And for those of you who pay attention to ad valorem taxes, those are the taxes that our community gets from properties. If the state had bought land in downtown Pensacola and the state had funded state contractors from out of our area to build it, our state for the next 30 years would have lost blocks of land downtown that they wouldn't have collected ad valorem taxes on, that would have messed with the character of our downtown. So Jared Williamson and I, for 2 years now, have been working on this FDLE facility to make sure it got built in a different part of town, to make sure that the way it was built meant that ad valorem taxes were coming back to our community, and to make sure that local contractors were building it. And we locked that up before session started, with the governor's office and with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And it's going to be $100 million swing for our county for the next 20 to 30 years. So I walked into session before passing any bills, before getting any projects funded, feeling like a winner. But that takes time. That takes time to figure out how to maneuver that stuff. And also it takes time because you can't make the governor's office decide to build a building overnight. It takes a while to get that stuff done. So at this point, in my third year, it's been good to have stuff that's been in the works for 3 years start to land. And it makes me more excited about the future.
Awesome. Representative Salzman, same question as your first session. How would you define personal success and effectiveness during a session, other than just maybe bills getting passed?
My biggest win that I feel is when folks would call me back home, I would be able to answer the call and help advocate for them. There were several pieces of legislation that Pensacola didn't like, or that local community advocates didn't like for whatever reason. And I was able to either tell them why whatever it was going to pass, or I was able to help them navigate that process and advocate for a change in whatever piece of legislation that was. I think that was the most fun I had, was just really being able to be that voice. I think the biggest win we had was the port. I was on the phone constantly with Amy and the Mayor Grover and others, just trying to advocate for that. And then, of course, the bill for ballots, we had some stuff in there about county commissioners and how they'd have to run for office. And the bill sponsor was amazing. They're all amazing. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be so cohesive, and it was just more than I could have ever asked for. Anybody I had a question of on a bill, they were very responsive and kind of helped me understand the why. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed being able to be the person that people could call and ask me questions, or call and get help with in changing bills. So that was my biggest win. You can't count those. You can't put a number on that. And certainly the public doesn't see. And I know Representative Andrade has got the same story. He could probably tell you all the calls he's taken, and nobody would ever know. But it's really nice to be able to help others in the community and really be that representative that we signed up to be. So that's how I measure my success. Also, like I said, the bringing any money back at all. That was what I campaigned on. So that was very important. It was really the only thing I asked for outside of the walkability bill. But
awesome. All right, so let's move on to a couple of things. I know one of the big things on everyone's mind in our local area, Representative Andrade, it's in your district. The 3 Mile Bridge has been just something we've all wondered about what's going on, and I know we're opening in the next couple of days. Is there anything you can add or tell us about the progress? Can you give us the inside scoop on anything that we don't know that we should, or anything like that? How's that going?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, right? So, for those of you who want to know the precise day and time it's going to open, nobody knows that currently. But what I can tell you is, the biggest holdup right now is getting those little reflective little stump pieces put on the lines that have been laid, right? So striping's been done. They're putting reflectors down now. They have to get tested to make sure that they actually reflect properly at the right angle and that the adhesive's been solidified enough to be driven on. And we'll all know about an hour before every engineer who might bear some kind of personal liability for a mistake has signed off on the bridge. So, like, my estimation is between tomorrow morning and Saturday afternoon, the bridge should be open. DOT is not going to give any type of specific because they're hedging at this point, but
Right.
and they have good reason to. But yeah, I mean, I anticipate the bridge being open to traffic by then. But at the same time, like I did an interview right before I hopped on here. This isn't like a win for somebody like me, right? I mean, 2 lanes on the bridge is not what we paid for.
Right.
We've deserved 4 lanes this September. We have not had any lanes in September. So the focus for me is making sure the governor's office keeps the Garcon toll lifted until we get at least 4 lanes back on 3 Mile Bridge, making sure 4 lanes comes back on 3 Mile Bridge as quickly as possible, likely the end of June, early July. And then in about 2 years, when the project is fully complete, when we have that entire second span on, making sure, one, Skanska actually acknowledges they owe those liquidated damages for the entire time the bridge has been down, making sure that money is coming back to the state, and then making sure that money is coming back to the state and back to our region. Because there's a lot of risks at play throughout that. So we have to wait till that project's done for them to settle their account with the state. We have to make sure that once that account is settled, money is coming back to the state. And then we have to make sure that when it comes back to the state, it stays in our region. So while it's kind of a relief to have traffic back on in the next few days, it's not a victory lap for me. It really, like, our work is not nearly complete, and it's going to take several years for that work to be done.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your work at this up to this point, keeping us informed with that. And from an economic standpoint of getting away from the bridge, I was in a restaurant today for lunch that is just short staffed. That's something we've been seeing all over the place. And recently, Florida has announced this withdrawal of the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program. Let's talk about that a little bit. What are the pluses or minuses to that? Do you think that'll get things started with some of these small businesses that have been affected by the unemployment? Representative Salzman, why don't you take that one first?
Sure. First of all, I think Rep. Andrade sent a letter to the governor in support of that, which was obviously a great idea. We certainly, not that I don't feel for the folks that need livable wages, but at the same time, is it really the federal government's job to support that and support others when it really is? It gives an adverse reaction to the business owners and the communities because it makes people become reliant on, first of all, it's short term, no matter how you look at it. It's a short term fix to a long term problem. And I don't support welfare of any kind. And I feel like it's a form of welfare at this point. The restrictions have been lifted for so long. Why do we have this problem? I actually attended the career fair in the WSRE building at Pensacola State College this weekend. On Saturday, I went and visited and spoke to a lot of the business owners, and they were all, one of them was 60 people short, and they only have a staff of like 110, and it's a big warehousing company, and we have a lot of that. Everybody I talked to was just seriously short. Not that we haven't been hearing this from business owners, but I wanted to see it face to face. I wanted to see, and I was there for quite some time, probably 2 hours. It was a 4-hour vendor fair, and I didn't get there in the beginning. I got there close to the end. And when I left, I took a picture of the sign-in sheet. Only 16 people came to look for a job. 16. And
wow.
obviously, yeah. And so I think the best move on the state's part was requiring you to show that you're searching for a job. Because in the beginning, it was you just clicked boxes and said, yep, I can't work. Thank you for the check. And finally, the state's like, okay, let me see if you're actually trying to apply for work. And then, of course, this is one step further into that by saying we're no longer going to accept the federal unemployment. But I mean, I feel for the folks that need the money. I get it. Matter of fact, I was at the grocery store a couple days ago, and I was shopping for dinner, and I got the 2-for-1 pork chops and something at Publix. And I came home, and I was just looking at the counter, and I was remembering whenever I was a single mom of 2 kids, and every penny mattered. And if you made the wrong decision on that dollar, you weren't going to be able to eat, or your kids were going to have to not eat as much. And I mean, as a child, I actually ate out of dumpsters. So I understand, that problem. Of course, I did what I could to keep my food on my kids' plates, and I continued education until I got to the point where I was making a sustainable wage. And so I'm not saying that I don't feel sad for the folks that really need the extra money, but I don't support the government, supplementing that, especially not in the way where they were making more money than I think my wage. I think I did the math, and if you're on federal unemployment and state unemployment, you make more than a state representative does. So I think it was a great move. I really do. Like I said, I'm sad for the folks that really want it, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Representative Andrade, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, well, first and foremost, right? So when I left session last year in 2020, COVID just started. We had the massive shutdowns, and I had 50 phone calls a day with constituents about any number of issues because everybody had questions about, the virus itself, testing, how am I going to keep a roof over my family's head, how am I going to put food on the table, how am I going to keep my business open, how am I going to employ my employees, keep my employees on staff with the government shutting us all down. And what I'll always say is, first and foremost, unemployment benefits, you pay for them. So everyone who's ever come to me asking for help with the unemployment system, we've helped access the unemployment system. And, I was there when the website shut down. We went from managing about, 4,000 people a week on the unemployment website to over 1 million in 1 week because the government shut everything down so quickly. So, I've had to, live through that side by side with all of my constituents for a year. I'll be the first to tell you that not a single person who's collecting unemployment right now from the state of Florida is lazy. That's absolutely not the message I'm sending. But at the same time, the same reason why Governor DeSantis kept me on our judicial nominating commission to help appoint judges in this community is the same reason why I did send that letter to Governor DeSantis asking him to pull out of the federal additional $300 a week. The intent of that program is to help people in transition. It's not to, replace an income, especially in an environment when we're desperate for employees. We can talk about those types of situations and like some type of universal basic income. And we can talk about the merits of that, but this system was not designed for that. So no one collecting unemployment is lazy. No one collecting unemployment is gaming the system necessarily. But it's not designed to like buy you a few months to wait for, you decide like what else might be out there for you, or to like give you a few months of comfort. It's designed for those people who are desperately in need. Like, I represent our local area housing commission, like the HUD housing, subsidized housing. These programs, they're designed for people in transition. The whole Floridian American model about the government's involvement in your personal life is we help you when you're absolutely desperate and there's no community help and support available. Making your life more comfortable has never been the government's role. And I think if you actually start delving into, what the government's role is as far as making some people's lives more comfortable. You're talking about causing discomfort for someone else in the form of some taxation, form of some type of other government restriction. So, the whole, perspective of true conservative legislators is to get government out of every individual American's life as much as possible. And that's one of the big metrics we have to consider. So, no one collecting unemployment. I don't have any judgment for anyone collecting unemployment. I do have judgment for a federal government and a president who believes that they get to go compete in the labor market the same way that two private companies do. If we want to talk about wages and wage competition, that whole competition should be between two private companies over labor. Walmart's paying $16 an hour right now for people to stock shelves. And $16 an hour is more than the $14.40 that someone's collecting on unemployment. The government should not be competing in that labor market in the same way. So no, I don't think pulling out is going to solve the problem, because there are a lot of legitimate reasons why some people aren't re-entering the workforce right now. They're making different life decisions. But the $300 additional on top of the $275 the state provides for unemployment, it was never designed to make someone's life decision more comfortable. It was solely designed for people who were desperately in need in like one of the worst times of their life. I'm not going to judge a single person who's on it. And I hate how that argument's been kind of distorted in the past few weeks, but and I don't think it's a silver bullet, because there are a lot of people who are reconsidering their life decisions. They want to go get uptrained and go find better jobs. They might want to go back to college, or they might want to wait out for, the industry that they were employed by before COVID comes back fully. But it's not the government's job to sit there and allow you to wait it out because you don't necessarily want to take another job. And I hate how people always say, like, I'm not going to go flip burgers. Well, burger flipping is not the only job available right now. The county of Escambia County has 300 unfilled positions. Every single employer, every single government entity has unfilled positions right now. If you don't want to flip burgers, you don't have to. But you don't also get to go, receive $300 additional to wait out, an economy that's fully back open.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you guys both for your input there. Let's Representative Salzman, do you specifically for young people, do you want to talk? Is there anything that you want to specifically talk about in your regular session that happened, or maybe in the works, even if not passed, that affects the lives of those here in Northwest Florida, specifically young people, maybe under 40, that happened during the session?
Oh, wow. Outside of my favorite part of legislation that was passed, which is the Cova liability laws, I think that was critical for any small business owner or business owner in general, just knowing that you have that umbrella of protection. And if you're under 40 and you're really engaged and you're a young professional, that's a big deal. I would also say that we did a good job in education this year. We did a lot for education. And if you're a young professional under 40, that means that you're either a parent of a younger child or you're thinking about having a child. And I would say that we're doing a lot for the education system in Florida. And that's certainly a big win, too. Outside of that, we did a lot of great stuff for small business owners, a lot of super cool stuff. I did the cottage food bill, but there were a lot of other bills that were very related to that were very helpful. So I would just say as a young professional, we're doing a lot to help the young professionals in the community as a whole. But my biggest win as far as legislation is the COVID liability bills that we passed so early on that folks aren't really talking about it anymore. But I think that was a big win.
And then the cottage food, that was House Bill 663. Do you just want to talk about that for a minute? Let everybody know who may not know what's going on, what that was.
It's super cool. The very first time that piece of legislation was passed, it was Frank White. How funny is that? I remember him calling me saying, "Michelle, that was my bill." But it's a cottage food bill. Basically, if you bake or whatever from home, or if you think that you want to bake from home, this bill extends that ability by number one, allowing you to have a business partner. So maybe you don't have the kitchen that you need, but you want to borrow a kitchen. You can borrow a kitchen. If you don't have the money to invest in whatever it is that you need for marketing or whatever materials, you can grab a partner to get the money to invest in that. It also allows you, it increases the cap from 50,000 to 250,000. So now you can actually make a livable wage, as we were just talking about livable wages. It also, my favorite part of the bill, you can ship now. So if you bake cookies in Pensacola and you want to ship to Wisconsin, you can ship your cookies to Wisconsin so you can sell online. So it expands your ability, your reach as a business owner. And then also it removes the ability for local municipalities to tax or require a certain business license. So it just takes away that one piece of government overreach, and you just get the license from the state now. And hopefully that'll be signed into law. I'm pretty confident that it will be. But it's super cool because as a PTA mom, that's one of the things we always did was buy from other moms, or, we try to help encourage that entrepreneurship. And I've been a mentor for the Pensapreneur, which is the children's mentor business fair type thing, for many years. And a lot of those kids are baking, they're making brownies and cookies and stuff. So it's really cool to be able to expand that and really help the other cottage food folks out there that just really want to expand, or folks that just want to try it in general. So super cool.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Representative Andrade, you had 4 bills that were passed this session. Anything you want to talk about specifically that affects those here in Northwest Florida, maybe even more specific, the young people of Northwest Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I passed 4 bills. I would say 3 of them were, at least had components that came directly from constituents here in Pensacola, right? So I passed a child support bill this year that revises Florida's child support system in multiple different ways. But the big component of that bill and the big reason why I ran it was because Navy Federal, our largest employer here in Pensacola, said that when they moved their operations here to Florida, there was a program called Fast Levy that several large states had already implemented that Florida was behind the 8 ball on. And it was a program that really hindered their operations here in the state. So being able to implement Fast Levy here for our child support system allowed me also to change like 15 other components of our child support system in conjunction with the incoming minority leader in the Senate, Lauren Book, this year. And it came to me because someone from Navy Federal, an executive from Navy Federal last year told me that they were desperately in need to have Fast Levy implemented here in Florida. Another one obviously is a drones bill that I worked to help pass. If you remember Hurricane Sally and you remember all the news coverage from how long it took FEMA to actually give us all individual assistance if we needed it, one of the big problems we had with Sally is it was a slow-moving hurricane, and a lot of our damage was caused by flooding. Flooding recedes extremely quickly. So if the water is not still there, it becomes tougher and tougher for you to prove up your damages to FEMA to qualify for individual assistance. So I came to session prepared to have a drone bill pass with the Department of Emergency Management. It ran a couple of hiccups. The federal government had some serious concerns about how drones are used. So I had to work with Senator Rubio significantly to make sure that the drones that are being used in Florida weren't able to be compromised by hostile foreign governments, which is not something I anticipated to have to deal with. But we managed to get that language passed to where, after a hurricane from now on, local governments, including Escambia, which just bought a big drone, and Escambia's administration was extremely happy that it passed, could fly up a drone immediately after a disaster to process that damage and help prove up to FEMA why we're entitled to individual assistance in the future. Another one, I work on a big transportation bill every single year. These transportation bills, they become heavy magnets for policy, because if you're going to pass a law that changes transportation policy in Florida, it suddenly has a lot of money behind it. right? It's a big financial draw. So making sure that our transportation policy here in Florida is the best it can possibly be, to allow for our roads to be the safest they can be, our bridges to be the most stable they can be, is always something that I work on. And, we're pretty blessed in Northwest Florida. We rank out as having one of the shortest commutes in the country, when 3 Mile Bridge is actually up and running. Being able to kind of stake my path in the legislature as far as being a transportation policy guy has been positive. I've passed the transportation bill off the House floor, all 3 sessions. And, it's been passed with the Senate companion now twice, my first session, now my third. So, I'm excited for that bill to pass. And then my 4th bill was really, it was an election integrity bill. It was a relatively small bill, but we had a couple of loopholes on campaign messaging via text. So I guess, if you're a millennial or younger, and you communicate largely via text, you might not like getting campaign text messages. So the bill really just said, if you're going to get a campaign text message with any kind of, campaign language in it, you deserve to know who's sending it to you. So that was the gist of that bill. But if you are curious to know what bills we passed or projects we got funded, you can go to myfloridahouse.gov and you can kind of search through all of them, to learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And let's talk a little bit about the special session that we had. How do you think that's going to affect young people? Is there what are the good plus sides for people maybe under 40? I know I have a friend, my barber, was real excited about this, some of the things in this bill. So let's talk a little bit about that. Representative Salzman, about the special session and the gaming bill.
Sure. Well, interesting enough, whenever I campaigned, I had a couple of ideas that I thought would be, because we were in the middle of COVID and we were talking about a budget shortfall. And on all my interviews and of course, town halls and other conversations, they asked me what creative things we could do to bring some more revenue to Florida. And my 2 things were online sales tax and expand gaming. So I had nothing to do with either one of those working, by the way. I'm not taking any credit, but it's kind of interesting because those were the 2 things that I felt like would be really helpful. But caveating into, I did a survey of a majority of my voters. When I first went into session, I mailed a survey to everybody, and I also had it online. And I asked folks, how do you feel about expanding gaming? Would you mind having a casino in District 1? And I think it was like 70% of my people said no gaming. So there went that idea. But interesting enough, whenever the special session was announced and the gaming compact was made public, and what we were voting on, I got maybe 2 or 3 emails and then maybe a couple of phone calls from constituents concerned about what that meant and how we were expanding gambling in Florida. And so I didn't really get any pushback, which I anticipated. So when I got calls from, folks in Tallahassee about this, I said, I love gambling. I campaigned on gambling, so I'm all in with it. And I'm coming with an open mind as far as what it will look like and whatnot. But for right now, I have no issue with it. So I was really excited about it. And I think we had a really good compromise. As far as what we decided on in the end. And I think it's really neat that what we started with isn't what we finished with. And I think that's just really shows that the legislature is really working that process. And we really do have a say as representatives and senators in the state. So to the young folks out there, I would say it is a win for Florida. I feel it's a win for Florida. And I'm certainly excited about seeing what all the revenue that comes from it and what we can do with that.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Representative Andrade?
Yeah. So, substantively, right? So the big thing that's going to affect you, if at all, is going to be the fact that if you're gambling illegally right now on sports betting, you'll most likely be able to gamble legally on sports betting here in Northwest Florida. Right. Well,
that's early.
Well, and here's the thing. So that was always the biggest component of this whole deal, was the expansion of allowing the Seminole tribe to start operating a sports betting franchise here in Florida.
Right.
people try and tout it as like a $7 billion industry, but $7 billion is the net of how much people bet on sports every year in the state projected, because again, it's a currently illegal. We don't have actually firm numbers. $7 billion is not the revenue. It's not the money lost. It's not the money gained. The actual projected net revenue to the Seminole tribe every year is somewhere in the range of like $300 to $400 million, which sounds like a lot. When you're talking about statewide, it's really an insignificant amount compared to the casinos that they have in Tampa and South Florida. It does not give the Seminole tribe the ability to open up new casinos in different regions of the state. We do have these things called pari-mutuels, right? So if you operate a dog track, you can also have some designated player games like poker, potentially blackjack in our area. It doesn't expand them. It actually, ingrains them in statute. So like, you're not going to see an expansion of any type of in-person gaming here in Florida. You're not in Northwest Florida. And I don't anticipate you're going to see an expansion of sports betting here in Florida, because while it's illegal, it's very easy to do. Even during this legislative session, I saw plenty of people in Tallahassee betting on sports on their phones. And if you
Would
really
you care to name those people?
Absolutely not.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
If you want to go bet on sports on your phone, it's not that hard right now, even though it's illegal.
Yeah.
All it's going to result in is a little bit more money coming to the state. We're not going to see a big difference here in Northwest Florida. And honestly, my most fun conversation to have during this special legislative session on the gaming compact was when folks asked people like me or Representative Maney, who represents Okaloosa County, where our closest casino is. It's not in Florida. It's in across the border in Alabama, or it's at Biloxi. People leave our state every single day from over here to go lose money at a casino in Alabama or a casino in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Not going to change tomorrow. I think otherwise it's going to result in about $500 million a year coming to the state for the first 5 years. It's going to be challenged in courts. There's this thing called IGRA. There's this organization called the U.S. Department of the Interior that's going to have to sign off on this. And our, Florida Supreme Court's going to have to weigh in most likely, because the lawsuits are going to be filed. U.S. Supreme Court might potentially at some point have to get involved as well, depending on what lawsuits are filed. But to locals here, the only difference is when you place a sports bet, you'll most likely start placing it legally, and whatever money you might potentially lose will actually go to the state instead of, to an offshore bank account.
Awesome. Thank you guys for that. And what we're going to do is kind of, as we wrap up, we're going to end with a final question that come from one of our viewers. And to sum it up, we'll start with you, Representative Salzman. Is if you could go back to the time and you were contemplating your run for the state legislature, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't believe everybody. People say they're with you. Are they really with you? I think that, keep moving.
I think you kind of maybe even answered that question at the beginning when you were saying just get involved,
Yeah, keep moving. Keep moving, keep pushing, just keep getting out there. There were days that were hard and there were days that were harder.
Absolutely.
But those were days. I had such a great support group. Every day I would get texts or phone calls from people all over the state. Some even in the governor's cabinet saying, "Keep it up, you're doing great." And those would remind me, get out there and direct voter contact. That was the big thing. People would just text me those 3 words, direct voter contact. I would see ugly things on social media and they'd say, just go knock a door. So I just say, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And if you're out there right now, I saw a question come in. I'm just a caveat on your online forum here. If you're out there and you're thinking about running, just do it. There's nothing stopping you from running for whatever office it is. Get engaged. I mean, why don't start later? I'm 40, almost 44, so I'm a little bit older than most of you guys. And man, if I would have been me 20 years ago, I probably would have ran. You know, instead I started volunteering at nonprofits, and I did that for almost 20 years. And so I'd say get out there and do it. Just do it.
And then while you're talking before, do you have any final thoughts on top of that before we wrap up and close, Representative Salzman, that you would give to anybody on top of that? That may be all, but if you have anything else.
I would say if you feel like you want to get engaged in the community and you don't know where to start, I do welcome you to reach out, and we'll have coffee. I meet with folks all the time who I mentor young women a lot. I have several that consecutively that I'm always working with to help them grow and develop relationships, whether it's for their personal growth and development or professional, or just, the nonprofit sector, trying to just get engaged and really help the community. I welcome you guys to reach out. My contact information is all over social media. I answer all of my own messages on Facebook and everywhere else. So reach out to me if you have any questions and you want to get engaged and you don't know how. I would love to help you.
Thank you so much for that. And Representative Andrade, I'll ask you that same question. If you could go back to the time when you were contemplating your run for state legislature, what advice would you give yourself?
Probably, to sleep more, and not let your anxiety take up. I got elected, and I lost about 80 pounds in that first year. Like, I just stopped sleeping and eating. I have a full-time job here at Pensacola that I very much want to keep. I took a pay cut when I, took office, in recognition of the fact that my production at my full-time job was going to go down a little bit. But really just to kind of relax a little bit, not stress so much. But if I'm talking to somebody else who's thinking about running for office, I would say to really look internally, and to self-assess, right? So if you just want to run for office, self-assess and look in the mirror a little bit more. If you know what the job entails, and you know in your heart you're the best person for that specific job, you have a responsibility to run. But if you're thinking back home right now, man, I should just really be a politician, you might be considering it for the wrong reasons. Like, we want people who are humble, who are willing to self-assess, who are willing to put the work in. Because if you're not willing to actually put the work in, you're not going to do your community any good in a position like this. Like, you have to have like an almost unhealthy level of self-deprecation to do this job effectively, and actually benefit your community. So like, I don't want to dissuade anybody from running for office. Like, if you believe in your heart you're the best person for the job, run. But if you can convince yourself you're the best person for the job without actually doing that self-assessment, I might want to encourage you to go just like engage in the community more, because people also they'll at doors, they can tell the difference. So, at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, if you have a heart for your community, just do it to the best of your ability. I never thought I'd run for office. I just wanted to go be value add. I started a charity here in town. I'm keeping that charity going, even though I've been elected. I mentor young men, big brothers, big sisters. We still go to lunch almost every weekend. My whole world perspective is just, I'm doing everything I'm doing, regardless if it's state rep or volunteering at Big Brothers Big Sisters, or helping run on bikes, or being a participant in any other organization, just be a value add to the community. So however you think you can best improve the world around you, just keep doing that just sell out for it. And it's the only way I can sleep well at night. I don't know. I got really introspective really quick, but ultimately,
self-awareness is key.
Your whole goal in life is to go be value add to the people around you. like just add value.
That's great. Awesome. Any final thoughts, Representative Andrade, before we close and end our time together?
No, I mean, like, I appreciate, anyone who's been watching, tuning in. If you go to my Facebook page, the call button goes straight to my cell phone. You can text me, you can call me. If you got any questions, if you need any help, feel free to call me. I'm pretty darn accessible, sometimes to my own detriment, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody participating in PYP. And if my dues are late, let me know, I guess, because
we'll send you a notice if it is. Well, guys, we want to thank you so much for both taking the time out of your evening to spend some time with the young professionals here in Pensacola. Representative for District 1, Michelle Salzman, and Representative for District 2, Alex Andrade. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We appreciate your time. For everybody that was watching us, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.